The Machiavellian closer. Why nice guys finish last. There's this uncomfortable truth nobody in sales wants to admit. The nicest, most well-intentioned reps often finish last. Not because they lack product knowledge, not because they don't work hard, but because they've been sold a lie about how human decision-making actually works. Tonight, we're exploring why Machiavelli, a 16th century political strategist that understood power dynamics better than any modern sales guru, would tell you that your commitment to being nice is sabotaging your close rate. Drawing from Machiavelli's insights on influence and modern cognitive psychology, we're breaking down why the most successful closers aren't the nicest people. They're the ones who understand psychological mechanics well enough to guide prospects toward decisions that actually serve them. Let me tell you about a UFO cult that perfectly illustrates why your rational sales arguments aren't working. There's a book called When Prophecy Fails, about a group absolutely convinced the world would end on a specific date. They believed aliens would rescue them before the apocalypse. They sold their possessions, said goodbye to families, gathered together on the appointed day, and then nothing happened. No apocalypse, no aliens, just awkward silence. You'd think this would be a wake-up call, right? Clear evidence they were wrong, but here's what actually happened. Instead of admitting error, the group convinced themselves that their faith had been so strong, they'd actually saved the entire world. The prophecy didn't fail. It succeeded because of them. This is cognitive dissonance in action. And if you understand how to weaponize this principle ethically, you'll never struggle with objections again. Leon Festinger, who studied this cult, discovered that humans experience profound mental discomfort when holding contradictory beliefs. And here's the key insight most sales training completely misses. When faced with conflicting information, people rarely change their core beliefs. They change their interpretation of reality to protect their beliefs. Think about your last lost deal. You presented overwhelming evidence your solution was superior. ROI calculators, case studies, testimonials, all the logic pointed one direction. And the prospect still chose the competitor or did nothing. Here's what elite closers understand that nice guys don't. You don't overcome cognitive dissonance. You architect it strategically. Instead of presenting facts that conflict with their current worldview, you create situations where not buying creates more psychological discomfort than buying. Let's say you're selling cybersecurity to a company that's been with the same vendor for 8 years. Their belief, we're adequately protected. The nice guy approach. Present evidence. Their current vendor is outdated. Show competitive analysis. Demonstrate superior features. Result, cognitive dissonance. Their brain has to choose between admitting they've been making poor security decisions for 8 years or deciding your evidence is somehow flawed. Guess which one wins 90% of the time? The Machiavellian approach: create a scenario where their current beliefs generate dissonance. You might ask, walk me through your process when you last evaluated whether your security posture matches your current threat landscape. How long ago was that comprehensive review? Then silence. And since that review, how many employees have you added? How many new cloud applications? How many remote access points? More silence. So if I'm understanding correctly, your security strategy was built for a company half this size, with half the attack surface, operating in a completely different threat environment. And the board believes you're adequately protected based on what current assessment? What did we just do? We didn't attack their vendor. We didn't present our superiority. We created cognitive dissonance between their stated belief and the reality they can't deny. Now they're uncomfortable. Now they need to resolve the dissonance. And the easiest path? Engage with someone who can help them verify they're actually protected. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said the good must learn from the wicked. The manipulator creates cognitive dissonance to serve themselves. The ethical persuader creates it to serve the prospect's actual needs. Same tool, different intention, dramatically different outcomes. Here's where most sales training goes catastrophically wrong. It teaches you to sell to needs, pain points, and logical justifications. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. People don't make decisions based on needs. They make decisions based on who they believe they are. Identity is the most powerful force in human psychology. We'll distort reality, ignore facts, and make irrational choices to protect our self-concept. Remember that UFO cult? They didn't abandon their beliefs when prophecy failed because those beliefs were tied to their identity. They weren't just people who believed in aliens, they were the enlightened ones chosen for salvation. So here's the formula elite closers use. You don't sell solutions. You architect identity agreements that make your solution the only logical choice for someone who sees themselves that way. Before you ever present your solution, you need the prospect to explicitly or implicitly agree to 3 statements about themselves. Example, for enterprise software, I take action when things make sense. I don't need permission. I'm the kind of leader who thinks strategically, not just technically. I make decisions based on what's right, not what's comfortable. How do you get these agreements? You use elicitation statements. You seem like the kind of person who takes action faster than most executives I work with. I've been doing this for years, and I can just tell. They'll almost always confirm, yeah, I don't like getting bogged down in committee decisions when the path is clear. First identity agreement secured. Next, I'm curious, how did you develop that ability? Most people in your position feel like they need consensus on everything. This is a personality inventory question. You're asking them to explain their own excellence. When people explain why they're good at something, they reinforce that identity even more strongly. Well, I learned early that if you wait for everyone to agree, you never move forward. I'd rather make a good decision today than a perfect decision 6 months from now. Second identity agreement, strategic, decisive leader. Now you move to negative dissociation. That's refreshing. Every time I talk to someone who doesn't have that mindset, it's like they all have the same problem. They're so afraid of making the wrong choice that they end up making no choice at all. Then they're shocked when competitors pass them by. Pause. Let that sink in. So what was your turning point? When did you decide to just trust your judgment and move forward even when others were hesitant? They're now telling you a story about how they're different from those paralyzed decision makers. They're reinforcing the identity you're architecting. Now validate it with authority. You know, I read fascinating research from Gartner recently. They studied executives who successfully led digital transformation versus those who stalled out. And they found 2 consistent traits. First, the successful ones made decisions faster. They understood that speed matters more than perfection. Second, they were comfortable being first movers. They didn't need to see 5 competitors do something before they felt safe trying it. You're not complimenting them anymore. You're describing research that happens to perfectly match the identity they just claimed. Here's the final move. After your meeting, you send them a text introduction to someone in your network. Sarah, meet David. Just had a great conversation with him today. David's the VP of Operations at company, the kind of strategic leader who moves fast when he sees the right path forward. Thought you two should know each other. What did we just do? We made their new identity social. Now it's not just what they told you, it's what they're publicly known for. And humans will bend over backwards to remain consistent with public commitments. David can't respond and say, actually, I'm terribly indecisive and afraid of action. So instead, he leans into that identity even harder. Now, when you present your solution, you don't pitch features. You simply position it as the obvious choice for someone with their identity. Given how you think about strategic positioning and competitive advantage, the question isn't really whether this approach makes sense, it's whether the timing is right. And based on what you shared about your Q4 initiatives, It sounds like this is the exact moment where decisive action creates maximum advantage. You're not selling. You're reminding them of who they already told you they are and showing them that this decision is simply consistent with that identity. This is what Machiavelli meant. The good must learn from the wicked. The manipulator uses identity architecture to serve themselves. The ethical closer uses it to help prospects make decisions aligned with their actual values and needs. Same psychological mechanism, different moral framework. Let me tell you about the nice guy who lost. His name was Jesus of Nazareth. Western culture was built on the Christian story. The nice man from Galilee who always treated people well, turned the other cheek and ultimately wound up as King of Kings. Beautiful story, inspiring narrative. Machiavelli pointed out one inconvenient detail. From a practical perspective, Jesus' life was a disaster. This gentle soul was trampled on, humiliated, disregarded, mocked, judged in his time and place, removed from divine assistance. He was one of history's greatest losers. Here's why this matters to you. You've been conditioned to believe that being a good salesperson means being honest, never using psychological pressure, building relationships slowly, presenting facts objectively. You tell yourself you didn't get the deal because you're too principled, too authentic. Machiavelli would tell you that's self-serving bullshit. You lost because you were more committed to feeling ethical than being effective. You prioritized your comfort over your prospect's actual needs. The core principle, you are the sum of what you achieve, not what you intend you're selling to a company hemorrhaging money on an inefficient process. Every month, they delay costs them $200K. You have the solution. You've done the analysis. You know you can fix this. But the decision-making committee is paralyzed by risk aversion and internal politics, the nice approach. You wait patiently. You provide more information. You let them think it over. You respect their process. You never apply pressure. Result? They delay 6 more months. Waste 1.2 meters. Eventually, implement a mediocre competitor solution because someone finally forced a decision. You acted nobly. You slept well. You protected your self-image as a consultative seller. And you failed your prospect catastrophically. The Machiavellian approach, identify the blocker. Let's say it's the CFO who's politically opposed to the champion. You isolate the objection. It's not about money. It's about not wanting the champion to get credit for a win. You architect a situation where the CFO can claim partial ownership of the initiative. You might say to your champion, what if we position this as a finance-driven efficiency initiative rather than an operations project? That way, the CFO gets visibility with the board for cost savings, and you get the operational improvements you need. Is this manipulative? Technically, yes. Is it ethical? Absolutely. Because you're serving the prospect's real needs, not your need to feel pure. Here's what Machiavelli actually wrote. The admirable prince should learn every lesson from the slickest and most devious operators around. They should know how to scare and intimidate, cajole and bully, entrap and beguile when necessary. We are all ultimately the sum of what we achieve, not what we intend. If we care about helping our prospects, but only ever act politely, we will get nowhere. It's not enough to dream well. The true measure is what we achieve. The purpose is to change outcomes for the better, not reside in the quiet comforts of good intentions. Machiavelli disturbs us for good reason. He probes us where we're most self-serving. We tell ourselves we didn't get there because we're too pure, good, and kind. Machiavelli disturbs us for good reason. He probes us where we're most self-serving. We tell ourselves we didn't get there because we're too pure, good, and kind. Machiavelli bracingly informs us we are stuck because we've been too short-sighted to learn from those who really know. Our competitors. The most successful closers aren't the nicest people. They're the ones ethical enough to deploy every psychological tool available in service of their prospect's actual needs. That's not manipulation. That's mastery, and that's why they win.